Okay. It's 7. So I'll go ahead and I'll call the meeting to order and then you can call the roll. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Garcia.
Yes, Mr. Allred.
Here.
Ms. Billman, Mr. Fell.
Here.
Mr. Fitch.
Here.
Mr. Hopkins. I see him. He's muted though. He's here. Okay. And Mr. Weiskopf.
Here.
Okay. And Ms. Yu is excused.
Okay. So we do have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Are there any communications?
I have not received any.
I haven't.
Lily?
No, there have not been.
Great, thank you. Approval of the minutes from the, I'm getting an echo. Anybody else getting an echo?
Yes.
Somebody's got their cell phone on and the computer.
I'll mute me just in case it's me.
No, I think what the issue was, Jonah has connected via computer and
phone. That's
telephone.
Yeah.
He's muted on one of them, so that should be good.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, so approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes tonight. We'll do them separately. The first is the June 11th, 2020 Plan Commission special meeting. This was in regard to the city zoning cases regarding recreational cannabis. Has anybody got a motion or anything they want to do with the minutes?
Sure. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Mr. Feld moves the June 11th, 2020 Plan Commission minutes.
Second.
Second, Mr. Allred. Any changes to the minutes or discussion? No, in that case, by voice vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Sorry, Tyler. Recall we need to do roll calls on everything now.
Even on approving the minutes? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, forget the ayes. Let's do a roll call.
I will call a roll. All right, Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Mr. Fell.
Yes.
Mr. Fitch.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
And Mr. Weiskopf.
Yes.
Okay, those minutes are approved. The minutes from the June 18th, 2020 Plan Commission regular meeting, this was to do with the pedestrian master plan that we're reconsidering tonight and also the bicycle wayfinding plan. Can I get a motion?
I will move to approve these minutes as well.
Motion by Mr. Fell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allred. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? Then by roll call vote.
Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Mr. Fell.
Yes.
Mr. Fitch.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Weiskopf.
Yes.
Great, those minutes are approved. Okay, so I had jumped down to communications before we had to go backwards. So I guess we still have no communications.
That's correct.
So we've got a continued public hearing tonight. Plan case 2401 CP20, application by the zoning administrator to adopt the 2020 Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan as an amendment to the 2005 comprehensive plan. So Ms. Wilcock, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. Let me just share my screen really fast. Assuming everybody can see that.
Yes.
All right. So the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan. So I'm going to go over really briefly a couple of changes, and of course, then you can ask me any questions. We have 2 follow-up items that are really substantive: the brick sidewalk recommendation and also the University and High Cross Road recommendation. The brick sidewalk changes staff worked with RPC after the last month's meeting to make sure that the language kind of explains where the brick sidewalk program came from, that it comes from 2002 ordinance and it's been in the CIP, the capital improvement plan for the city of Urbana since 2003. And that this is going to be after getting public input from the Urbana pedestrian plan in 2018. We have this brick sidewalk recommendation for staff to consider sometime in the future to bring up to BPAC. BPAC would likely have a couple of meetings on the topic, and then it would go to city council. And about the process for that, I wanted to bring up a little bit about, we actually recently, this plan got started in 2017. And so recently, last winter, we actually had one of the policy recommendations of the Urbana pedestrian plan that you see here came up. It was an amendment to the snow removal ordinance. And so BPAC met several times on that amending the snow removal ordinance to include a couple of more areas that are pedestrian oriented currently for the city of Urbana. And then city council had several meetings about that and garnered a lot of public input for those amendments, and they were amended even further after BPAC had presented an advisory resolution to change the city ordinance. So this brick sidewalk program, it lives in our city code. It's just to ensure that when a sidewalk is repaired, a brick sidewalk is repaired, it's reconstructed in the correct manner or fashion that it's designated by that map. And that sometime in the future, after getting this public outreach, staff in BPAC would consider a change to the black designated sidewalks. And there would be a lot of public hearings and input past that. So we added a little bit more information and cleared up a little bit of the language to that. And then the second thing was University Avenue and High Cross Road changes. So RPC, I'm gonna try to zoom in if possible. You might have to refer to your exhibit packet. RPC zoomed into this and made this map for today's meeting, which is very helpful because these lines are very small and difficult to read. And they also added in, because this plan was started and was started before the Kickapoo Rail Trail was open, they only had a low priority sidewalk side path suggestion for High Cross Road. And it went all the way up and it wasn't fairly specific. And it didn't include the pedestrian stabilization that would be required as well on that corner. So RPC staff has added that in there and it's in the implementation tables. They've been amended as well to kind of reflect now that the Kickapoo Rail Trail has been established, that Aldi, Walmart, OSF intersection. Right. And all right. I have just a slide about the recommendations for this case, because I know what with these Zoom calls, it's a lot harder to make sure that we have that. So there's the following recommendations for 2401-CP-20, and I know it's not in your packet that you got over the weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I just reiterate that you can recommend approval to City Council for adopting the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. You can make a recommendation to City Council to recommend approval of adopting the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan as in an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan with specific changes, or recommend denial of adopting the Urbana Pedestrian Master Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. And that there was a recommendation from the last month's memo that says, based on the evidence presented in the discussion above and without the benefit of considering additional evidence that may be presented at the public hearing, staff recommends that the Plan Commission make a recommendation to City Council to approve the comprehensive plan amendment. And that is my very brief presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much. Mr. Hawkins?
Okay, because of the way my screens work, when you put your stuff up, my ability to see my map goes away. Okay, now you've taken yours down so I can see the document. So, two questions. What you showed, which I had a very hard time finding, is that they have now added the gap to the gap map. As far as I can tell, they have not added the recommendation to the recommendation map. So, and I also did not find the sidewalk link, which is the major issue, in the table. I found only the signal, the pedestrian signal in the table, which is actually not the issue. So as far as I can tell, they haven't fixed it.
Yeah, I'll have to, the appendixes were attached separately. So I'll have to go back with RPC to.
Wait a minute, the appendixes? I'm looking at the maps within the document.
Right.
And
I'll have
I'm
to take a
looking
look at
the
that.
tables within the document. Are you telling me that the changes were made only in the appendices?
There's implementation tables in the appendices, and then there's kind of a summary report in the document itself. So I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought you were referring to the appendices.
Well, the highest priority sidewalk gap recommendation should be in yellow in the maps that are in the document. And as far as I can tell, that's not the case for the sidewalk gap we're talking about. And the highest priority items should be in the tables. And I did not find it in the table. Of course, it's possible I missed it, but.
Lou, can you tell us which map are you looking at? Like what page is that on?
Well, it could appear on one of two pages. Let me see. I am looking on page 105.
I'll get to that and I can share my screen. Taking a little bit of time. I have fast internet, but it's a long document. Okay, almost there. Okay, and let me get back and share my screen.
And Kevin, I might have it pulled up too as well.
Okay, I think this is it. Let's see. Is that right? No. Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so this is the map on 105. The recommendations.
So yellow like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
over here. I don't know if people can see my pointer, but there isn't one at the intersection here, which there should be.
Yeah.
So that's the map. Now in the table of sidewalk gap recommendations, I also didn't find it.
Okay. And what page was that on? Do you have that?
For some reason, the way I've got my set up, when you capture my screen, I can't look at my.
Oh, yeah. Let me stop sharing so you can look.
Okay, so let's see here. Can't remember whether they.
You're talking about 99
Um,
or 90? No, that's sidewalk.
well, that's sidewalk beveling.
Yeah.
I think it may come after that. It's in here somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
Sidewalk gaps
yeah.
is page 107 and 108.
Right.
Yeah, go
so-
ahead.
Yeah, I think So RPC, I'm not quite sure if they got to the mapping to that recommendation map, and I'll have to double check with Gabe Lewis, the project manager on that. But let me share really fast the implementation table for trail recommendations.
Oh, is it a trail?
It's a trail, right, because it's wider. And that was a request. The difference between the sidewalk and the trail was that it was 6 feet as opposed to a 4-foot
Oh,
recommendation.
so,
for 5
okay,
foot.
here's the trail projects. Let's see.
It should be on the second page of the trail. And I can share my screen if that,
Okay, you're right. It's under the trails. Okay, so now is it on the trail map?
it's in a different file. I will check that out.
I can look, I've got it up, so. Trail project recommendations, highest priority. Let's see, I've got to get to the. Right. Map, what did I say it was on, 105? Okay, but it's not on the trail project recommendation. It's
No.
not on the map, but it is in the table.
Yes, it's in the table, and I would just speculate that there's a lot of maps that he would need to change, and so he might have missed one. So we
Well-
can make sure that he has that comment.
Yeah, well, I don't know how they're doing their maps. It appears on two of the maps cover that spot. I don't think it's on either one of them. Anyway, okay.
Okay, any further questions? Let's just take this question of the High Cross and University. Any other commentary on that? And I think we could trust you to clean up the maps and the tables.
Yeah, the table, it turns out, is correct.
Yeah, just make sure everything lines up. So we've got, well, hold on, Dennis. Dennis Roberts is raising his hand, and we'll get to you in a minute. Let us continue the discussion here, and then we'll throw it open for public input in a bit.
This isn't discussion, it's questions.
Correct.
The staff.
Okay. Any further questions? In that case, in regard to the brick, I just have one question since this is questions. Do you think the change will make it easier to replace brick sidewalks with concrete? I'm going to have two questions. First one first, do you think it makes it easier for the city to replace brick sidewalks with concrete? Is that the intent, or do you know?
I can take a stab at that. If this policy recommendation is discussed at BPAC and is approved by City Council, it would make it easier if a sidewalk gets repaired to be in
Correct.
concrete, but it would also be something that the property owner would still have to agree to and want it to be constructed in concrete.
But you're flipping the onus, correct, from sort of acceptance to objection, I guess maybe you'd say. Is that fair?
I think that's how that works.
Okay. And do you think that this will save the city money?
That would be a great question for Public Works, because they do handle cost estimation.
I know their answer.
sidewalk.
They think it will save money. They do. That's all I've got on this. Any other questions on Ms. Robbins? Yeah.
If I understand the rewording, this is a plan recommendation. It doesn't actually change anything.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to
I
make
think
sure.
that's my understanding. Okay, any further questions? Okay, now we'll close the, or thank you, Ms. Wilcock. If there are no further questions now, is there anybody who wants to address the Plan Commission on this? And Dennis Roberts has his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, thanks for unmuting me. You can't see me. That's fine, I guess.
Probably better.
Probably better. All right. Really, it was only brought to my attention that the topic of brick sidewalks and the preservation of them, or the changing of the wording of the ordinance, is being recommended tonight. And so I spent some time about an hour and a half ago sending all of you a letter with my thoughts about it. So you all have received an email by now with my recommendation. Unfortunately, I did not send it to Kevin Garcia because I didn't realize he was going to be managing the meeting. I sent it to Marcus Ricci and to Lori. And so now I've also sent a copy of that letter to Lily. But of course, I had to leave the meeting twice to be able to find their email addresses and get them going on that. But I'll just say that the CUNA neighborhood spent years working on preservation of the brick sidewalks in East and West Urbana. As you know, there are protected sidewalks according to the ordinance, which was drafted around 2004, 2005. I don't have the specific date. The CUNA neighborhood really supports the historic look for the sidewalks. We value the fact that they're part of our community. And we even conducted our own neighborhood sidewalk restoration laying project back in about 2004 or 5, sponsored originally by Alice Engelbretson. We spent 2 weekends relaying a brick sidewalk on South Maple Street. And so what I'm saying is that the community has supported this pretty fervently. And we did have a plan and agreement with the city that up until it was not funded, apparently, the brick sidewalks that were designated as being preserved were even sprayed with the biochemical to take away the weeds in the fall when other public works projects were in abeyance. Then more recently, when there was work on Green Street to repave it, the city was requesting that the brick sidewalks be removed. So the CUNA neighborhood met with the city staff and reached a compromise. And in the compromise, we agreed that all of the brick sidewalks on the north side of Green Street between Vine and Cottage Grove could be removed so that there could be wheelchair accessibility from downtown to Victory Park. And as you know, the CUNA neighborhood received a Governor's Challenge Award back in 2005 on the development and the reconstruction of the playgrounds and the facilities at Victory Park. The compromise that we allowed to occur was to remove the brick sidewalks on the north side of the street so all of the sidewalks on the south side of the street could be retained, which was significant to us because the Green Street sidewalks were not in the guaranteed preservation designation for the rest of the interior part of our neighborhood. I myself live on Green Street and I have brick sidewalks both on my front house facing Green Street and on my side yard on Grove Street, which I am very glad to maintain. Therefore, I would say that it is a concern in our community to avoid making it yet easier for individuals and the city to promote cementing over what is now a brick sidewalk by removing them during maybe a repair stage or some other construction along the street. They contribute to the historic quality of our city. They were laid at the turn of the century. They retain their resilience today. They are a permeable choice over cement. And although they do need repair and relaying in some instances, if the city would actually care to do such work, the sidewalks could be in very good shape. And the city has actually paid quite a bit of money to have the sidewalks relayed on some of the interior streets of the Huna neighborhood and the West Urbana neighborhoods. Finally, as an attachment to my email to you, I included letters that I received back in 2018 when the document was, when the discussion was raised whether to replace a length of sidewalk along South Anderson Street in the 300 block, which is just south of Green Street, to cement. And originally the city had convinced the property owner that that would be a great idea. But when we discussed with him the quality and the concern we have to retain our historic brick sidewalks, he changed his mind, and the city agreed to retain the entire length of the brick sidewalks, which are being dug up for a water project by the Illinois Water Company, American Water. It turned out that the water company actually then paid for the relaying of the sidewalks at no cost to the city, because the city decided that they needed to be relayed. So this is the most recent reason and conversation we've had in our community about retaining brick sidewalks. And I think that if this discussion could be delayed or deferred, you would have then time to receive other people's emails and input. But as it was, I myself was not even aware that this was a discussion item before the Planning Commission until mid-morning. So I've had other things to do today. I haven't had a conversation with other individuals, but you can read their comments in the email attached to a document attached to my emails to you. There's about 7 or 8 individuals in the community who responded and expressed their concern to retain brick sidewalks. Now, you might think that it's a small thing to flip the discussion to make the default that the brick sidewalks could become cement. But that small decision then therefore disempowers those of us in our community who actually respect and are concerned about the historic texture of our built environment in Urbana. If you were going to go to any city for a vacation, you would probably gravitate to the old historic downtown rather than stay near the expressway at the strip malls. If you wanted to see what the city was really all about, the historic brick sidewalks are not a common feature in many, many cities. It is something that we should treasure and try to protect. And we should not be making it easier for commissions, boards, and city staff to make these recommendations, which would alter or affect the ability to retain these historic sidewalks. That's my input, and I hope that you make a thoughtful and considerate decision to make no changes to what we have today, because a small change will have a significant impact in the built environment of our community. So thanks very much for listening to me.
You're muted, Mr. Fitch.
I said, thank you, Mr. Roberts. And so are there any questions for Mr. Roberts? And no, I just wanted to ask, make sure that his email, which it looks like we got at like 6:49, is added to the record, and as well as the attachment, which is a series of correspondence from various people regarding their support for brick sidewalks to characterize it.
Yes, we will add that to the record. I actually did receive it. I think a couple of people forwarded it to me, so I have it. We'll add it to the record.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't think there's any other public input. So if we could close the public input portion of the hearing and proceed with discussion. Is there any discussion first on the, I don't know if there needs to be any more in regard to fixing the maps with the oversight that Mr. Hopkins noted? Okay,
I'm assuming that just gets fixed as a technical correction.
I would think.
Yes.
There it is. It's on record. Okay, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Now, in regards to brick sidewalks, any points of view there?
So there's some interesting questions about process here.
Yeah,
This is a document generated by a particular process yielding recommendations. They are not actually binding, any of them, on anybody. They have some grounding from state law as being potential backing for decisions. But as far as I can see at the moment, that's it. So the question from my point of view for us is, would we want to amend this document at this stage of its process? Or let it go forward as the result of its process? And essentially run into the question of whether the change would actually be made later. I'm slightly inclined to make the change in the plan, which the people who participated in the process of making the plan might find sort of objectionable. But my own sense is that we might be better off if we align the plan with what we expect the council actually to do, rather than at our stage put through a plan that we think is likely to be inconsistent with actual intentions of the council. But I don't know what I'm thinking out loud. I'm not.
sure. Appreciate the thoughts. Anybody else have a thought they want to share on brick sidewalks? Or to Mr. Hopkins' point, the process that this plan went through, yielding this set of recommendations. Now, Mr. Allred.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of inclined to take, to give some weight to the process that was undertaken to create the plan, which included public participation as well, and have to assume reflects to some degree what the community, maybe not the specific community Mr. Roberts was talking about, their specific neighborhood, but the broader community wants. So I don't know. I'm not really clear on this sort of question that Mr. Hopkins brought up about how this may or may not be received by council. I mean, is there some sense that this is something that would be objectionable to council?
I don't know. I don't know about the whole council. I mean, we just heard from one, but it's not just this council, it's future councils. And I don't know, I defer to, everybody else, but my inclination is to have the plan commission give its best recommendation and let the council do what they're going to do. But
we are recommending to the council that they adopt this.
You're correct.
The council could actually, I believe, amend it regardless of our recommendation. So the details of that, we got into trouble on this once before, and I can't remember the details. But I think it was a zoning case, so that it wouldn't apply to this. So the council really has two opportunities. They will act on adoption as an amendment, and the adoption of the plan does nothing actually, because there's an ordinance. And this is simply a recommendation to change the ordinance. And the council would have to change the ordinance. And that change actually would not come through the plan commission because it's not a zoning change or a subdivision or a plan document. Again, I'm thinking out loud about how these processes work. So in a certain way, we're caught in the middle. And it's another one of the reasons that I find disconcerting the notion of making this a component of the comprehensive plan. Because at one level, that implies a certain level and scope of citizen input that this plan has not actually had. So coming from people who are specifically interested in pedestrian, not a wider audience. If we were adopting it as a pedestrian plan, then I would be more inclined to say that the process generating this plan had more status. But because we're making it part of the comprehensive plan, I'm a little more concerned about the implication.
All right. Anybody else have anything? I got some thoughts. I mean, to both of your points, that this, I think it's a really good plan. So let me just say that as a whole, this is a good plan. And in the laws, you have things called severability, right? Where if we struck down this provision, for lack of a better, the whole thing could survive. But we could amend it here if we wanted, but I'm not sure how I would amend it, because I don't think I would just say, let's bring it into line with the current policy. I think I would change the whole thing to say, let's repair and preserve and improve our brick sidewalks, which is beyond the scope of what I would be comfortable doing here. So, I mean, I agree in their historic value. I live there's one right in front of my house. I maintain it. It's good and flat. It's a little sunken and it floods sometimes if there's a lot of rain. But I think there's a lot of value, and it's part of the reason why we chose this neighborhood. That and the completely inefficient but very lovely streetlights. So I think I would note my objection to this change. I would not know how to amend it. I mean, I told you where the direction I'd like to go, which it would be unfair to the process. So I would be inclined to support it as is, with my thoughts that the city council should look at this particular change, recommended change in the plan very closely, and certainly make the technical amendments that Mr. Hopkins noted in regard to High Cross Road and University. That's where my head's at. Anybody else have anything they want to put in there? Okay. Well, I guess our choices are to, as lined out, are to either to support it as is, amend it and recommend its adoption, or recommend that not be adopted. Personally, I don't want to do that. And I don't know how to amend it, so I would go with option A.
Question. Has there been a pedestrian plan before in the city of Urbana?
No.
Okay.
So unlike the bicycle plan in 2016, which was a new bicycle plan after the 2008, it's more like the 2008 where this is the first time.
Right. So I can't use the trick I used on that one.
Mr. Allred?
Yeah, so this is going kind of back to staff for a question. So would this, so obviously there's a conflict that's unlikely to be resolved by adopting this. Would this be relooked at? I mean, it's kind of a shame that a lot of work was done to create this plan, and then we're going to turn around and create a new comprehensive plan in the next year or two. Would this be relooked at, or would this just become, sort of part of that plan because it was adopted fairly recently as part of the previous plan?
That goes to Mr. Hopkins' points from last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago.
So I'll talk a little bit to that. So there's no kind of what Mr. Hopkins was saying today. There's no changes that would be made unless staff and or BPAC made a recommendation to City Council, and there would be a public process and a public discussion about this change. Then before the change would ever take effect, and City Council would have to approve that. As far as it being incorporated into the next comprehensive plan, that's really up to the input process. I think though that what is being recommended today is to amend the 2005 comprehensive plan.
Okay, because I guess the concern, as I understand it from Mr. Hopkins, or as part of what his concern or what he's articulated, has to do with the idea that there's a different constituency that was involved, the constituency that is overwhelmingly concerned with pedestrian accessibility, that would have certain opinions about this that might differ from those who are more concerned with aesthetics and historic preservation, that those two groups would be likely to not hash it out, but they would have a voice that would be combined in a more comprehensive process, right? So that sort of more comprehensive process is unlikely to happen, because if it goes to council, it's going to come up through BPAC, which again is going to be limited to that constituency that is interested in accessibility. I'm again, like Mr. Hopkins, I'm kind of just trying to think through the process of how this is likely to unfold and where it would likely to be resolved in a more agreeable way, I guess.
Well, I can certainly vouch that poorly maintained brick sidewalks are a serious accessibility issue. There's no question about it. And so I understand that impulse from a pedestrian perspective. So I agree with that aspect of it.
So
I don't know what to do here, though.
is Jonah trying to talk? I can't tell.
I don't know.
Okay. So let me describe a logic and then try to come to a motion. Despite the legal practice of treating this as an amendment to the comprehensive plan, de facto, we all know it's not. Okay, and what I mean by that is it's a separate physical document. It derives from a different process. It will not actually be revised and incorporated into a new comprehensive plan. Unless some specific process is undertaken to do so. That is when we replace, assuming we replace, and I don't want to get into that whole issue, the 2005 comp plan. The amendments to it, you know, are at least de facto, if not legally, gone. So I suggest, I propose that we send this to City Council with recommendation of approval with the acknowledgement of the record of the discussion we've just had, that this is a pedestrian plan for Urbana. And it is the result of a process that is focused on pedestrian access. And as the result of that process, it has legitimacy. But it is not actually a change in the ordinance. And it's not actually revisiting the comprehensiveness of the comprehensive plan. As long as we keep that in mind, I don't think either side of the brick sidewalks issue has to get too worried about it, because frankly, I think it'll make no difference at all as a plan. So I move that we send it to council with a recommendation for approval with the technical corrections only.
Second.
Mr. Fitch, you're muted.
I'm not very good at this. I'm sorry. That was a motion by Mr. Hopkins and a second by Mr. Allred. Dennis, I see you got your hands up. I think we're going to vote here and then send it on to you and the council for further considerations. So we've got a motion to send it with a recommendation for approval with the technical corrections noted. Is there, we got a motion and a second. So is there any further discussion? Yeah, I think I said my piece on what I think about the brick sidewalk issue. So I don't need to say anything else. I think the record reflects pretty well what our thoughts are. That not an ideal situation, but it's also not a change to the ordinance. So not wanting to substitute my judgment for the process that led to this, then because I would do that. I would change that section entirely. But that wouldn't be fair. So I'm prepared to vote. So, Mr. Garcia, roll call, please.
Mr. Allred,
Yes.
Mr. Fell,
Yes.
Mr. Fitch,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
and Mr. Weiskopf.
Yes.
That motion is approved, and this will go to council in a couple of weeks.
It will go to Committee of the Whole on the 20th.
20th. Great. Thank you. Okay, we don't have any old business. We don't have any new public hearings or new business. I don't think there's any audience participation. So is there a staff report?
Yeah, a couple things. We have two new planning interns focused on the comprehensive plan. Lily has been working with them extensively, so I will let her describe what they're doing and who they are.
Yeah, I guess as a part of file this under what a world we live in, we have two remote interns from schools across the world, and they're living and working in across the globe. And so they're working on issues with relating to getting the comprehensive planning process started. And so that's a kind of an exciting and new approach to how we have interns at the City of Urbana.
Very exciting.
So, a little clarification, what actually is being done, since we haven't been told anything about it?
Certainly. So right before pandemic had caused many people to stay at home, the City of Urbana hired a strategic coordinator, Andrea Rudy, to start working and managing and handling the process of a new comprehensive plan. And I have been assigned to Andrea Rudy to help start some of that work. So that's just fiscal year was July 1st. And so we're just starting to take a look at that.
Okay.
Yep. So still early in the process. Lily, did you want to talk about the interns and what their specialties are, or anything, or who they are, anything like that?
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you. So they're both fairly quantitative and are familiar with demographic work and statistical analysis, but we're way too early on for that. So we're actually using their powers for some background research on data, but also to starting to the stakeholder engagement process and really getting a lot of research done in different ways of communicating with people after the pandemic. So continuing this process of digital involvement and more inclusive forms of involvement for engagement.
Okay, thank you. And along the lines of the comprehensive plan, I wanted to announce that the RPC received a grant from IDOT. It's about a $400,000 grant to do a comprehensive land use inventory for Urbana, Champaign, and Savoy. So we are really excited about that. It should help us with our comprehensive planning work a lot. We don't really have an up-to-date or very accurate land use inventory in Urbana, and luckily they didn't in Champaign or Savoy. So we've been able to be a part of that. That grant was just announced within the past week or so. So we'll have more info on that going forward. But essentially, for you planning aficionados out there, we'll be using a form of the land-based classification system, which I think was developed by the American Planning Association and some other folks back around 2000. I haven't actually seen it put into use too often, looking for examples of it, but it seems like a pretty robust way to inventory your land uses. So we're excited about that. RPC definitely has the technical expertise to send out teams of folks to go do that inventory. So that's pretty exciting news.
Can you send us an email to point us to the description of the land use classification system? I think I know.
Yes. Yeah. And I will also include in that email the grant announcement, the information we have about that too.
All right, anything further?
Yeah, there's one more small item after I finish writing this down. Okay. Okay.
I don't think it's small, for the record, by the way. I think it's awesome. If it is what I think it is.
Oh, well, first there's another thing. So the bike wayfinding plan that you all forwarded to council last time did not go to committee of the whole because there really weren't many agenda items. So that will also be going to committee on the 20th. Okay, and then the final item. So I'm now officially the principal planner for the city of Urbana. I was serving in an interim role, being the supervisor of the planning division for think since October, since Lori stepped up into the director position. So I am now official, and I start my 3-month probationary period on Monday.
Congratulations.
You're probably
Congrats.
Staff is excited.
I think you've already served your probationary period.
I was trying to make that argument, but 3 more months.
Great. Good news. Okay. Well, hold it. I already wadded up my agenda. I folded it actually very neatly. We don't have a study session, and therefore we are adjourned. Thank you very much.